Hello, I want to tell you about a project that I have had going for many years that's really brought me a lot of pleasure and satisfaction, and it's called a lifelong learning notebook. I remember the day in sixth grade when my teacher announced to our class that we were going to begin keeping a lifelong learning notebook, and it was just a 3-ring binder with a cover sheet and section dividers for us to label and decorate and design for various subjects. And the exciting thing about this project is that we got to choose what we were going to put in our notebook. We got to choose the subjects that we were most interested in, and then work in class each week to add to our sections. And the subjects could be anything we were interested in. Our teacher told us it could be a list of books that we had read or wanted to read. It could be our favorite sport or hobby. It could be gymnastics, monster trucks, outer space, computers, just anything that each of us was interested in. And I was really excited about this idea. Something about it really ignited in me a feeling of empowerment, of being kind of grown up and independent and able to be in charge of my own learning. So we worked on the notebooks that year. I don't remember what my subjects were. I don't remember what I put in that notebook, but I do know that I kept it for many years because I just felt very excited thinking about having a lifetime of learning ahead of me that I was in charge of. So it wasn't really until after I finished college that I began to keep learning notebooks. And I have done that off and on throughout my life. I have a stack here of about 14 of my learning notebooks. And as you can see, it's really a hodgepodge. I have a few 3-ring binders. I have some composition notebooks. I have spiral notebooks of various kinds and sizes, and some smaller, more journal type notebooks. I will talk a little bit more in my later points about how you can organize your own notebook and some thoughts I have on that. But to give you an example of what I have recorded in my lifelong learning notebooks, which I consider really as sort of a diary of my intellectual life, I have some notebooks that are dedicated to a single subject. I have Spanish notebooks. I have nature and nature sketching notebooks. I have bird watching and bird list notebooks. I have Bible study notebooks and probably a few others that are dedicated to just that single subject, a single subject. And I also have just compilations of multiple subjects within one notebook. And to give you an example of some of the subjects that I've studied over the years, I've written movie reviews and reflections, studies of Shakespeare's plays, Beethoven and Bach, the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer, and to study those 2 books, I used lectures by the Great Courses through the Teaching Company. I have a smattering of Latin and Greek studies, math, English poetry. Sometimes I will take notes from my reading in the magazine The Economist, which never fails to have at least half a dozen words that I come across that I really need to look up to really be certain that I know their meaning. So sometimes I'll just list vocabulary words and definitions. Also from The Economist, sometimes I'll take notes on international relations, geography, and I also did an in-depth study of John Milton and Paradise Lost, again using lectures from the Great Courses by the Teaching Company. I also have written responses to art exhibits I've been to, notes from the BBC podcast In Our Time, which focuses heavily on literature, history, philosophy, and science. And I also take a lot of notes from my New York Times reading on Sundays. I just keep my notebook right there with me while I'm reading the paper, and I will make lists of recommended music to listen to, movies to see, podcasts to check out, TV shows to watch. And sometimes I will take notes on more obscure genres that I'm not as familiar with. For example, I took notes from an article about jazz albums that were recommended listening, and also an article about the movie Parasite. The article talked about the genre of Asian suspense or horror films. So I made a list of others that I could see, since I did really enjoy the movie Parasite. And I also have studied archaeology and Greek tragedy, notes from a memoir writing guide, and notes from the book How to Read Poetry Like a Professor. So I'm very unstructured in general, unless I am doing a course through the Great Courses. I may just spend one day immersing myself in a topic, and then I might not pick it up again, and then just move on to something else that I'm interested in learning about. So I tend to not really look back through my notebooks. I feel like just the act of writing sort of solidifies the learning for me. So in some cases, I don't really need to review it. But as the years go by and I accumulate many more notebooks, I'm thinking that it'll be a good idea for me to spend more time reviewing what I have studied previously, because I want to retain that information long term, and I want to strengthen those synapses firing between my neurons and keep that knowledge in my head. So I would like to start going back through these, especially preparing for this presentation, kind of just seeing all the things that I've done. It was very rewarding to see the accumulation over the years. So if you would like to organize your own lifelong learning notebook, you can organize it or you can not organize it. If you wanted to be pretty precise, you could use a 3-ring binder with sections, one section per subject, and with the loose leaf format, you can just keep adding to that subject until your binder is full. If you like to do just sort of a compilation and just have one notebook going at a time that's just quick and easy to pull out, I really like the decomposition notebooks. They're the same size roughly as a composition notebook, but they're spiral, and I like being able to just completely fold back the page. Then if you wanted to display your notebooks on a bookshelf, for example, the traditional composition notebook has a nice binding that would look nice and tidy in a row with several other notebooks on your shelf. I hope that you've been inspired to take charge of your own learning journey. And one thing that I like to think about is, even after I'm gone, my children will have my notebooks someday, and I hope that they will be inspired to see my intellectual life, the record of it, and that they'll be encouraged to do the same and to experience that same reward of the life of the mind.